Hello everyone, this is me xplogamer. Today we're gonna be making a devlog of a unique type of game. We're gonna make a restaurant simulation game, but it's gonna be different from all other restaurant games because the thing is that the customers won't tell their orders.
What?
Yeah, it's a restaurant game where the customers don't tell their orders, they just describe what they want to eat, and you have to understand what it is by talking with them, guessing the dish that they have in mind.
Get out. Get out.
Finding the right order will help you earn money, or they'll just leave the restaurant disappointed. Now you might be wondering how I'm going to make these customers talk like an actual human and describe their orders differently each time they speak. Well, if you remember, I made a game before using something called Player 2, which is an AI NPC system that can be integrated into your games. I showcased this in a previous devlog where each NPC would speak like a real human using the power of AI. You could actually chat with them. That's how the game progressed. So I'm gonna be using that same technology here to make my customers talk like real people. That is also the game I'm planning to submit for Player 2 Game Jam. So yeah, let's start developing. So first I went and downloaded the Unity SDK file to integrate the AI NPC into my game. Then I imported it to my project and installed the dependencies it required to work. I took the README file and pasted it to ChatGPT and then asked it to help me set up the AI NPC system step-by-step procedure. I had to set up the NPC manager, the Player 2 NPC script, all in the correct places.
2 hours later.
Alright, so as you can see, it's working. We can talk to the AI. Basically how it works is that we tell the AI something like, you are this character, and it will act exactly like that character, speaking and showing actions just like the way how it's supposed to be. Suppose I tell him that you are Michael Jackson, and he's gonna talk something like this. Now I want this dialog box to pop up only when we interact with the NPC and not always. So I used Gemini to quickly create a FPS movement script. Then I created a raycast selector script which lets me shoot a raycast from the player. When this raycast hits an NPC, we're able to interact with him. This is basically how almost every FPS games work. They send out a raycast that lets you interact with objects in front of you. I also made a crosshair and placed it at the center of the screen so that you can see where you're pointing. The crosshair turns grey whenever there's something in the line of sight. And then I made it so that whenever the NPC is in line of sight and we press the mouse button, it will bring up the text box allowing us to chat with the NPC. Right now it's showing the default dialogue that was set earlier. So let's change that and give him a correct character prompt. I'm gonna tell the AI that he's a customer in a restaurant. He should describe the food but never actually mention the name, because as a player it is our job to guess what dish he wants to eat. And now as you can see, each time we talk to him, he's gonna say a different dialogue. If this were a pre-written dialogue system, it wouldn't work this way. We'd only have a few preset lines or limited variations. But since this is powered by AI, it actually thinks each time we interact and generates a new dialogue of its own. But as you can see, there's a slight problem here. Whenever we want to interact with him, we have to manually type and ask his order. Only then he replies. This is going to slow down the gameplay a lot, because every time a new customer arrives, the player would have to walk up to him and type what's your order again and again and again, which would get really boring. So I decided that whenever the player clicks on the NPC, it will automatically call a function that sends a dialogue like, hi sir, what's your order? That way on the first interaction, just by clicking, the NPC will immediately respond with his order. You only have to continue chatting further if you have any doubt or want him to elaborate further. So now the next step is to be able to pick up the food object and give it to the customer. I made this mechanic inside the ray selector script where if the food object comes in the line of sight of the player, they can interact with it and pick it up. What I did was I created an empty object called hand, which is placed in front of the camera. When you pick up the food, it moves to the position of the hand object and becomes its child, making it feel like you actually picked up the object. Now we should be able to serve this to the customer. Let's implement that part. So inside the NPC script, I created a string that stores the name of the food that he wants, and it's gonna be the same as the game object's name. So when I serve the food to him, we call the function to check the order. If it's the same, then he'll take it, otherwise he'll reject it. He can only forgive you 3 times, so if you gave him the wrong food 3 times, he won't accept food anymore. Okay, so now I can serve the dish to the customer. What I need next is a place to spawn this food. So we're gonna make something called a cooking station. Basically the kitchen of the restaurant, but I'm gonna call it the cooking station. I mean, we have PlayStation and workstation, then why not we can have a cooking station. So there we'll have a menu where we can select the food food that we want and it will be spawned right there and we can serve that food to the customer. I made the menu UI and created a new script called cooking station which will help me open up the menu. The open menu function from this script will be called by the recast selector when the cooking station is in the player's line of sight. And I also added another function to unlock the cursor so that I can select the buttons on the menu using the mouse. So now when I play the game, you can see that the menu opens up and my cursor gets unlocked and I select the tea. The tea game object then spawns on top of the cooking station. Now I can just pick up the tea and serve it to the customer. Now something I noticed when I was spawning the food and serving to the customer is that he wasn't taking my order. The reason was that when I spawn an object, its name changes. Unity automatically adds the clone to the name in brackets. So when the code checks the name, it sees that fried chicken and fried chicken clone are not the same since both strings are different. That's when I realized I needed to add the clone along with the name in the order string. Once I did that, the order started working correctly. Then there was another problem that when I tried to pick up a food item and there was already another food item in my hand or on top of the cooking station, these foods would clip into each other. This shouldn't be happening, so I decided to create some constraints to check whether there is already a food in my hand or on the cooking station. If so, then the menu shouldn't be opening or spawn another item. And with that, the problem was solved. Now in case you made the wrong food, what would you do next? Where will you dispose that food? For that, we're gonna need a trash bin. So I created another object called a trash bin which helps you dispose the food that you don't need. You can just click on the trash bin and the food object in your hand will be destroyed. So the basic mechanics of our game is now done. Now we just need to make it visually appealing. Add the assets. Let's begin by creating a model for the restaurant. I'm gonna head over to Blender and create a room. It's gonna be a small cafe-like hotel, nothing too grand. So I just made a room using 6 planes like a cube. Now you might be asking why I'm using planes instead of cubes for the wall. There are 2 reasons. First one is obviously lower polygon count which results in better performance, and second one is that a plane is only visible from one side, so when looking from the inside it's gonna look normal, but from the outside it will be transparent, meaning that I can see what's happening inside while developing without affecting how it looks during the gameplay. This makes my development easier while keeping the visuals intact. Now the textures are all set up, but as you can see the lighting isn't that great. Since this is an interior scene, we'll be having the lights inside, but still it won't look very visually appealing when I bring the lights in. That's because it's currently running on the real-time lighting. There are 2 types of lighting, real-time and baked. Real-time lighting is rendered during the game and updates dynamically, which is useful in games like GTA where the light keeps changing. But in this case, since it is a static interior scene, most games use baked lighting, which looks much better and is also less demanding. Many games with static environments use baked lighting to achieve that visually rich look while keeping the performance optimized. And now you can see that I've set up the lighting inside the restaurant and it looks really good. That's because it was baked before the game started, so it's much less demanding than real-time lighting while still looking great. So then I imported the table and chair for the customers to sit at. Now I want the customers to come and sit on the chair and start ordering, so I set up the script and added the movement. Now the customer spawns at the entrance and walks to the chair and sits down and we can take his order. So now let's change this capsule to a real human model. I'm gonna download this low poly human model. We're going low poly this time since I want to upload this game to the web. This model already had a walking animation, so I just needed to set up the eating and sitting animations. I imported it to Blender and set up the animation keyframes. Now I just need to make it convincing enough to say that he's eating. As you can see here, I'm not a pro animator, but I think I'm doing my best to make it not look funny. Alright, I think that's convincing enough. Now instead of this capsule, let's make this human move to the chair to make it look realistic. Alright, now let's add the proper walking animation and sitting animation and create a smooth transition between them. I also have to adjust the position of the spawn point so that his feet actually touch the ground perfectly when we're moving from one point to the other. Now as you can see, the animation is working correctly. He's sitting and I can take his order. Then I added more NPC models and used the random function to select the random body. But as you can see here, there's something wrong with the female structure. She looks like she needs help. Maybe the skeleton of the female model is different from the male model, so I might have to create a separate animation for her and the other female models. I spent the next few days trying to find the 3D models for all the food objects. There are about 16 dishes in this game and I want the 3D model for each of them. Instead of destroying the game object when I'm serving it, I changed its position to the table so that it looks like it's actually eating it instead of eating air. I couldn't find a good 3D model for the chicken biryani and fried rice that I added at the end of the menu, so I had to make the models myself. I just created a really simple cylinder model and stretched it like this. Then I added the texture that I created using Gemini. It's low poly game, so I think it's pretty decent. We just have to assume that this is biryani. Now when the NPC moved towards the chair, you can see that it actually moves straight into it. Sometimes it even clips through the table and goes to the chair on the other side. Since we're not using the AI nav mesh of Unity, instead we're just using the move to position in the script, it clips through anything that comes on the way and doesn't detect any collision. So this looks very weird when we see it. To fix this, I added another waypoint for the NPC to move to before reaching the chair. It's called the table pose. So NPC will move to the table pose point first and then move to the chair. This makes the movement feel natural and avoids the clipping. Then I went to Blender and fixed the female sitting animation. Now they can sit properly without getting deformed. So then I set up the other tables and adjusted their positions accordingly so that the NPCs can walk over and sit without clipping through the table. Then in the game manager script, which is responsible for spawning the NPCs, I set up the position for each seat and defined the number of unlocked seats. Basically what this does is that it checks how many seats are unlocked. At the beginning of the game, only the first table seat is unlocked and rest need to be purchased as the game progresses. So it checks the number of seats that are currently unlocked and creates a subset from the array which stores the seat positions and then picks a random seat from that subset which doesn't have a customer sitting on it. That seat is then assigned to the NPC that is going to be spawned. If no seats are available, it won't spawn any NPC. Next I added the patience meter for the customer. They're only going to wait about 30 seconds before leaving the restaurant angrily, so you have to serve them before the time runs out. So as you can see, when I move to the customer, she's not looking at me. She's just facing straight and saying her order when I talk to her.
Ashley, don't look at him, look at me. Ashley, look at me.
So I wanted the customer to look at me when I'm talking to her. I asked ChatGPT to help me make her face turn towards me when I'm close, but it wasn't working since the animation was controlling the head bone and I can't move the head bone while the animation is playing. So you can see that the head gets twitchy because it's going back and forth, confused between whether it should listen to the animator or listen to the script. I couldn't use the avatar mask like I did in my GTA game since this model was not using a humanoid armature. I noticed that when I turned off the animator, the head starts looking at the player properly. So I thought, why not I just turn off the animator when she's sitting? The sitting animation doesn't have much movement anyway, so turning it off won't make a big difference. But then I noticed that the sitting animation wasn't playing when I turned off the animator, even though in the script I told that turn it off after triggering the sitting animation. That's when I realized there was a transition duration of 0.25 seconds between the walking animation and sitting animation. The transition couldn't happen because the animator was getting turned off in between. So I had to add a 0.25 seconds delay before turning off the animator using a coroutine. After that, it worked perfectly. Now the customer looks at me as she should and it feels much better. Then I added a patience meter slider on top of the NPC so that the player can see the current patience level. When this patience level reaches 0, they'll storm out of the restaurant. Then I added a currency system to the game. You earn money whenever you serve the customer the right food. You also need money to cook the food. So every time you make a wrong dish, your money gets wasted, and when your money reaches 0, the game is over. You're bankrupt. So now it's time to make the UI a bit more attractive instead of this boring one. I created a menu panel in Paint. Then I set up the UI design for how the menu should look. It should display the name, image and price of each dish. For the icon image of each food, I created a new scene and brought the model there and positioned it in front of the camera. I set the sky background color to match the menu background color so it looks like a transparent image. Now as you can see, I've set up the menu for all the foods. Each of them is a button. You can click on them and cook the dish. Each one costs the amount that is shown below. I then set up the money text animation which shows how much money the customer has paid. I gave it a small animation with the fading and movement. After that, I set up the bill amount. It has a fixed price for the food. Then it adds a random tip between 1 to 10. Once the customer finishes eating, the text shows up and displays how much they paid in total. Then I set up the door and window for the restaurant to make it look better. I didn't want to make them transparent because that would mean I'd have to create an outer environment. I didn't have that much time, so I just made them them opaque. I'll leave the rest to the player's imagination. I then created the emoji reactions for the customer. When we serve them the right food, they'll show the happy reaction. When we serve them wrong food, they'll show disappointed reaction. And if we mess up 3 times, they'll display an angry reaction. Yeah, small details like this make the game more visually appealing and really add to the player's overall experience. I created this level up meter and slider which shows the player's experience level. Each time we serve the correct food, the experience increases, leading to the level up. That's how we unlock more food items in the game, because at the beginning, only first row of foods are available to make. I also made this text appear whenever we level up. I set these lock icons in front of the locked food items so you can't click them. As you level up, these locks will be removed and you will be able to click on these items. I also made sure that the game manager only spawns those NPCs whose requested food items are already unlocked. Now it's time to set up the shop. First it includes the tables, which when we purchase adds more seating in the restaurant so that more customers can be accommodated. Then there's the decorations, which includes plants, posters and a carpet. Plants are basically 3D models I got from Polypizza. The posters are generated by Gemini. I just placed these images on top of a cube and now they look like posters. The carpet is simply a texture applied on a plane. These decorations increase the customer's patience and gives you more time to serve them. I assume that if the restaurant looks really good, the customer wouldn't mind waiting, but if your restaurant looks like an empty room, the customer might get bored really fast. So once you purchase all the decorations and tables, the restaurant starts looking much more lively. To make these games more challenging, I added some payments in the game. No, not in-app purchases. I'm not Ubisoft. I mean the kind of payments a real restaurant owner has to make, like a gas bill, water bill, electricity bill, rent for the shop. These bills keep popping up every 2 minutes and you have to pay them in order to keep going. If your money runs out, it's game over. So you have to make sure you have enough money to cover these payments and dues. I then created the main menu with all the customers walking in and out. Basically, I just set their patience to 5 seconds and reduce the spawn interval so it feels like they're coming in and leaving quickly without the player needing to move. Then I created a tutorial scene which shows how to play the game step by step. It also displays a window explaining each features in the game. This tutorial only appears the first time you play the game. I also added a high score feature which shows the maximum amount you've earned. And with that, our game is now complete. I hope you enjoyed this devlog. I think this is the longest devlog I've made. I usually split these into 2 parts, but this time I made it into a full video because I had to submit it for the jam. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Comment your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.